much for being here. I now call this meeting to order, the Floresville City Council regular meeting for June the 27th at 6 p.m. I would ask everybody to please rise and join us in our invocation led by Mr. Bob Herndon, followed by our pledge of allegiance.
Let's bow in prayer, please. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, dear Lord, we are so thankful for this day. We thank you for life and life itself, dear God. It is my sincere prayer tonight as we conduct the city's business. We all behave in a way that will show Christ in all of us, dear God. Ask that you love the person to your left, to the right, behind you. And I ask all of these things in your precious name, for your sake. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
We do have a forum for tonight's meeting. All the council members and myself are in attendance. Thank you so much, council. At this moment, I open the floor to citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for anyone that would like to address the council to give you 5 minutes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, Craig Gonzalez, Floresville. I just have one, what may appear to be a minor item, but it's been in my mind for a while, and I think it's very important. I noticed that on executive session items, we normally don't have an opportunity for citizens' comment, and I think we should. We're mostly CMAs, and I'm talking about when they get to that point. So I would suggest that we have a comments by citizens part, if you will, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizens' comments tonight? Okay. If not, moving on to our public hearings, public meeting, I'm going to turn this over to our city manager.
Mayor, for legal reasons, can you state what time we're having our public meeting?
Yes, public meeting at 6:02 this evening.
Thank you. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain final citizen input on the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Karnes, Wilson counties, multiple jurisdiction hazardous mitigation action plan to be submitted to FEMA upon the final requirement public hearing and local board meeting and final review. So, Councilman, this is a meeting that we've been having for some time. This is to allow us to apply for FEMA funds and other things for hazmat. We had a grant with the county and the Journey City. So at one point in time, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we did it with ACON. We were with 5 counties. Now we're just with the 2 counties. We had a public hearing before. We've had several public hearings with the county. So the purpose of tonight is to say that we've gone through our hazardous mitigation plan. I believe you have one in your packet. And so this allows us to apply for emergency funding so that we can participate in that. We've had 3 public hearings with the county and Karnes County, and so we're having a recap to be able to do that. This makes us eligible, our community eligible for FEMA funds. Now, you remember we applied for a siren some time ago. We were not funded. However, we can apply now going forward. The plan participates with Karnes and Wilson County, and they'll be having their public meeting as well. In input, we've had input from at our last community meeting. We met with the school as well. We've been hosting these meetings at the event center, and I believe some former council member actually attended that. So if you have any questions, if the public has any questions, it's a requirement for us to have a public meeting.
Any comments by the council? If not, any citizens' comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And later on tonight, Mayor and City Council is on your agenda to approve to submit the work that we have done as a group. Langford and Associates was our consultant on this to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We need the time. Yes.
And
the time, please.
this public meeting is now concluded at 6:05.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to old business, consideration and action to approve the minute meetings of the regular council meeting on June the 13th. Council, you have those in your packet. I think you've had a chance to look them over. I'll give you a moment before I entertain a motion to accept 4 changes.
I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve.
Oh, motion on the floor by Councilwoman Cantu. Do I have a second?
I second.
Seconded by Mrs. Martinez. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. 5-0. All right, moving on to our presentation and discussion. We'd like to welcome Dr. Fry and the caregivers of WellMed this evening.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you tonight briefly about our WellMed Caregiver SOS program. I'm honored to be here, and I'm accompanied by Jennifer Lopez. She's our clinic administrator who's with me. I'm a family physician, and I've been working in Floresville and working and living here since 2006. I joined WellMed in 2012 and recently had the opportunity with many of you to celebrate the grand opening of our new building. Our new clinic building has space for meetings and community activities, which is why I'm here tonight to let you all know about one of them in particular. One of the groups that's going to be meeting is called WellMed Caregiver SOS. The WellMed Caregiver SOS program provides services at no cost for family members and friends who are providing care to a loved one with dementia or chronic illnesses. WellMed Caregiver SOS services are open to everyone in the community who need this support regardless of whether or not they're a patient at WellMed, regardless of insurance. There are no qualifications. Again, there's no cost. We're here to support caregivers in the surrounding areas. Many people who are caregivers may not actually identify themselves with that term, so I'd like to explain it to you briefly. While we may think of ourselves as wives or husbands or sons or daughters, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, when we're caring for a loved one that has dementia or chronic illnesses like heart disease or diabetes or frailty, we refer to ourselves as caregivers. That's where the term comes from. If you're one who cares for someone with one of those conditions, if you're dealing with challenging or difficult behaviors, if you're feeling depressed, anxious, frustrated, stressed, lonely, or isolated in your busyness while caring for your loved one, then you're a caregiver, and that's what WellMed Caregiver SOS is about. There are several different services with WellMed Caregiver SOS to help support caregivers. In our clinic, which is 100 Wilson Drive, right in front of McCoy's, I'm excited to announce that July 16th at 10:30, from 10:30 to 12 in the morning, we have our first Caregiver SOS support group. At our WellMed Caregiver SOS support group, you'll meet people who are dealing with similar situations, and you'll learn also from a Caregiver SOS specialist, as well as from each other, strategies and ways to help you better manage daily activities, both for your loved one, but also to help you take care of yourself, because that's really hard in this role. There's several other programs that Caregiver SOS offers. Since it's difficult sometimes for caregivers to leave home, there's an incredibly helpful caregiver telecommunication program, teleconnection, excuse me. It offers free teleconferences 3 or 4 times a month. The caregiver can call in to listen to professional speakers who discuss a variety of pertinent topics, and then they can ask questions of doctors and lawyers and social workers and people that they might not have access to otherwise. There's also a WellMed Caregiver SOS program that's more intense. It's called the Caregiver Stress Busting Program. I don't know who of us don't need that, but especially caregivers. It was developed by Dr. Sharon Lewis at the Health Science Center in San Antonio, and it's proven to reduce stress, anxiety, anger, and to improve the quality of life for families and friends that are caring for older loved ones. So we have both Jennifer Lopez and another staff member in training to be able to facilitate that program, which is going to be a 9-week program where the caregiver would come once a week and get guidance and support to help them learn to manage their stress and develop better coping skills. I brought some information with me that Mrs. Turner gave you in the folder that includes just more information about these things and also some phone numbers. There's a card for the Caregiver SOS lead, but anybody in our clinic is also available to ask any questions. So Thank you again for your kind attention. I would ask that you would let the community, your family members, your friends know about this service because it's very lonely and really difficult to be a caregiver of someone with a chronic illness. And I have been eager to have this program come, and so I'm excited that now we have a space to do it, which is why I wanted to come tell you about it. I might remind you, you might have to explain to somebody that they are a caregiver. They might not think of themselves as that way, but you'll know if they are. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Next on our presentation is the Wilson County School of Ballet and Performing Arts. We have Diana McCormick and her girls, or her students.
Greetings, City Council, Mayor of Floresville, and City Manager Henry Turner. We bring to you today the students selected for the first session of Summer Intensive. Let's give them a clap. We, the Wilson County School of Ballet and Performing Arts, has since 2016 offered a summer program to all youth who choose to participate. And for the past 3 years, we have grown our program and recently held an audition for the very popular 2019 Summer Intensive. We've even expanded to welcome 2 different levels. Junior, Miss Amelia Carter, who's going to curtsy, and our seniors, all the other girls that you see, go and curtsy. They have learned quite a bit, not limited to jazz, classical ballet technique, progressing ballet technique, nutrition, injury prevention, stage presence, the etiquette of ballet, and much, much more. We thank the City Council, the Mayor, the City Manager for awarding us, as shown here, the Summer Youth Program Award. I would like to now introduce you to the students as they have written what they have learned.
My name is Kaylee Touche. I'm in the 11th grade. I'm 15 years old, and I attend all these classes of San Antonio. I really enjoy doing my book report and look forward to presenting it tomorrow. The book I selected was about the New York City Ballet. After taking a break from ballet for over a year and a half, following the summer intensive has helped me find my passion for dancing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Kincaid. I'm in 11th grade. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Livonia High School. For the past 2 weeks, I have created what once were new classmates into several new friends, and we bonded quickly by having the program over the summer intensive. Hi, my name is Michaela Hans. I'm in 10th grade and I'm 15 years old from Fall City High School. Being a brand new ballet student, but currently a member of the Fall City dance team, I knew I needed to get better at dance and I needed to take ballet. I learned a tremendous amount of new stretches and ballet technique, essentially a ballet crash course that I knew has made me stronger and more educated as a dancer.
My name is Tony Gore. I'm in 5th grade and I'm 10 years old. I learned injury prevention by rolling out my foot. I've learned to be more responsible, and I learned to communicate better with my parents.
She also attends Floresville North Elementary. And Miss Amelia Carter.
I'm Amelia Carter. I'm in 3rd grade. I'm 8 years old. I go to Garden City Elementary. I really enjoyed the fun field trips we attended as a group.
Miss Chloe.
My name is Chloe Cowie. I'm a 10th grader, 15 years old, and I'm from Floresville High School. This is my 3rd summer intensive, and I've learned new things every time I've attended. I'm also the summer teaching assistant. I'm working towards being a surgeon, and this intensive has taught me the importance and dedication of time management.
As you can notice, our costumes are very patriotic. We ordered them quite a few months ago, and they actually shipped from Australia. We're very excited to actually be hopefully reusing these, Council, in future festivals, because I'm military, from a military family, second generation, and we very much love our military family. We are very proud to present the Stars and Stripes Forever choreographed piece that we've been working on very hard for the last 2 weeks, as that they've been in class for 6 hours a day for the last 2 weeks. We are proud to present that at the Freedom Fest 2019, and we are looking forward to growing the fine arts in Wilson County. Council, may we take a photo with you with our Summer Program Award? Excellent. Go ahead, ladies. Go ahead and go behind the City Council.
I guess everybody can sit.
Yeah, you know what, I think it's better to stand and sit
Dancers, go ahead and move up front. Come and move up front. Move in between the chairs. Move in between the chairs. Right here, please.
Thank you so much.
You look very beautiful.
Most of you have an agenda in front of you, and I've had a couple of requests to move some items around. So we are now going to go to item number 4C. Consideration and action to award the street maintenance program bid. We have M&S Engineering with us, and they have a time constraint that they have to meet this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We're here to discuss the 2019 street maintenance program. As instructed by the council, we went out to bids on 3 streets in Floresville. The streets are Plum Street from 4th Street to 10th Street, D Street from 5th Street to 10th Street, and G Street from 3rd Street to 5th Street. We took bids on June 13th. We evaluated all of the submittals that we received, and we are recommending that you award this contract to R.L. Jones in the amount of $405,760. Are there any questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor? I have a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between mill and overlay and then the other one, full depth?
Full depth reconstruction? Yes. On the mill and overlay street, what we do is we go in there and we strip off the existing asphalt, okay? We prepare the base material and then we just come back in and pave it with new asphalt. On the full depth reconstruction, we remove the asphalt and the existing base material, and we bring in new base material, and then we pave it with asphalt. That's the difference.
Any other questions by council?
So on Plum Street, y'all are just gonna remove the top?
Yes, the existing asphalt, the top.
No base?
The base is going to be fine, so we're going to be able to use that, reuse that, and we're just going to pave it with new asphalt.
Yes, sir.
Does Plum Street have base?
Plum Street does have base, yes.
And it was checked already?
What do you mean by check?
I mean, there's base throughout the whole street?
There's base throughout the whole street.
Because that's one of the oldest roads. I know there's several roads back over here
Okay.
that did not have no base, period.
I'm just concerned,
Yes, Councilwoman?
I'm just concerned because that's the worst street. And that's why I wanted you to explain why were we doing full depth over here and over there.
When they remove the asphalt, we'll know if there's base material there or not. In areas where there's not any base material, we'll come back in, excavate out the material, and bring in base material. That'll be a change order. We did not do geotechnical investigation on the streets. We normally don't for a mill and overlay. But if see that there's no basement area, we'll come in and replace it.
That is gonna be a way it's across, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
There's gonna be a big difference in the prices.
The price.
It depends on how much it has to replace. We can't predict that.
How did you determine that you just needed the mill and overlay?
We simply did a visual observation of the pavement and its condition. For the type of condition it's in, a mill and overlay is an appropriate rehabilitation at this time.
Okay, so then I'm gonna go back down to the D and the G streets. How did you come to the conclusion that they needed a full depth reconstruction?
We did a visual inspection, and what we found was a lot of what we call alligator cracking, which is an indication that both the asphalt and the base material has failed. And it's no good anymore, it has to be removed and replaced.
Yes, sir.
Again, Plum Street has holes, has cracks, has everything. It's the worst street in the city of Floresville.
Yes, and we are going in there and we're
I
replacing.
think we would be safer doing what you want to do on Fifth, back on Plum.
We are going to prepare the street for the overlay, and we do that by going in where there are potholes, and we'll cut that out and replace the base material. Same thing for the areas that have alligator cracking. We'll go in there, replace it before we overlay.
What we're afraid of is that you're giving us a price and then you're gonna come back and then give
It's
us
gonna be
another
double.
price.
What, okay, and a guesstimation, how much more or less are we looking at if we have to go back to the base for the whole roof?
I'm not prepared to answer that. I do not know.
Because that's a big change order that we're talking about.
We can come back with that figure. We can change order this contract as much as 25%. And we could change the direction on Plum Street and come back and replace the
Okay,
base
so
material.
you're saying 25%. What's the total cost of Plum Street in itself?
I don't have that breakdown. It's probably in the neighborhood of 150 to 200,000.
Why don't we go ahead and do the other two streets, wait. And you go and check, do some boring in there and see if there is asphalt,
Base material?
right. Because here we're just giving out numbers and all this and possibility this and that. Let's do it right. I mean, because we don't want to come back and say, well, you know, it's 200,000 or so.
The most inexpensive way to accomplish that is to work with your public works department, and with a backhoe, we'll just
Right.
excavate out 10 inches to see what we have.
Right.
We'll have to do that probably every, oh my gosh, 300-400 feet to get a good sample of what's there.
Right.
Can you do?
Madam, I have a
And then,
Let me see, did you have a question? Okay, Councilman.
Madam, we had decided that Plum Street was gonna be the first street we started on. That's what we had decided. That was my understanding.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. So, we're not gonna, I don't think we should start moving around. I mean, if you're gonna do it, and you say it's 25% more,
what I said was, you're able to increase your construction contract by 25%. I do not know how much the increase would be. That's something that we can calculate fairly easily and get that to you next week.
Yes.
So actually, we don't really have exact figures on this, right?
No, we do not. We have a figure on all of the streets together.
But if you have to go back and, excuse me, go back on Plum Street and do what we're asking about, then it would be another figure, but you don't have a figure for us.
I don't have a figure here, but we can easily extract that information from the bids that we have and come back to you early next week and get you that information.
So it sounds like we're not prepared
No.
to take
we're
any
not
action on
prepared
this.
to take an issue.
I make a motion, we table it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any citizens' comments pertaining to this? Okay, if not, all those in favor of tabling item 4C, raise your right hand. Thank you. Okay, we're now moving on, and I'm sorry, but like I said, I've had a lot of requests to move some things around. Moving on to presentation of items. Item 3C, presentation of the 2017-18 audit, and we have our representatives here tonight.
Mayor, hello council, thank you for having me here today. I provided for the meeting here a draft of the financial reports, the bound document. It is a final draft, but we are ready to go final. It's just common practice to bring a draft, and then once it's approved, we can finalize it and start distributing. Accompanied with the bound document is also 2 additional staple documents that we'll be also covering today through my presentation. We did meet with the audit committee last Tuesday, I believe. It was a.
Excuse me, do you have an extra copy? Because I didn't get one.
Did you get one? Yes.
I have one.
No, it's not in the back. It's not in
get this one?
It was,
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Is it this one? Yeah.
Is it this?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get you one.
I think we have an extra one.
Okay, it's up here, it's just not in front of me. Thank you.
So first I'd like to cover the bound document, and then I'll go into the staple documents as well. All this information was covered in our audit committee meeting at length, but I can answer any questions you may have here today. Beginning on page 1, it's a couple pages in, is our independent auditor's report. Basically explains what we were engaged to do, and that's perform an audit over the financial statements for the city of.
excuse me, which page are you on?
Page 1. It's a couple pages in, up to the table of contents.
And it's the same as the one we had?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and. There wasn't any changes?
There was. So at the meeting, we did discuss what the changes were going to be, and that's the MD&A and the full accrual conversion information. But all that information is obtained in the notes as well, which we covered at length. So.
Thank you.
On page 1 is our independent auditor's report. Basically, again, it explains what we're engaged to do, and that's perform an audit of the financial statements for the city of Floresville for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2018. The next paragraph down says management is responsible for those financial statements and the fair preparation and maintenance of internal control over this presentation of financial statements. Our responsibility, the next paragraph, is to express an opinion on the financial statements as presented. We did conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards in the United States, as well as government auditing standards issued by the state comptroller. On the next page, page 2, the third paragraph there is our opinion letter, and it basically states that the financial statements as presented in this bound document are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in the United States. It's a clean opinion. The next paragraph, as auditors, we are responsible to the financial statement users, and we have to assess the financial health of the city. We did this year issue a going concern for the city, specifically the city's general fund. As described in note 8, and we'll go over that note during my presentation, the city's general fund continues to experience negative changes in fund balance, relies on budgeted fund transfers from other funds, and also borrows restricted cash for its operations. The combination of those, as auditors, for our financial statement users, we have to protect ourselves and issue a going concern for the city. Concerns about the general fund to continue operations without the other fund's assistance. The next paragraph.
Excuse me, so
Yes.
what you're saying is that they borrow money from one?
Yes. So as costs come up that we have a pooled cash account, and I'll discuss those comments also that we have with the pooled cash account. As costs come up, the claim on cash is taken from the fund's expense that it belongs to. So we have an expense in the general fund, goes into the negative because it doesn't have the deposits and the cash resources to fund that. Therefore, the other funds that do have the cash resources, because there is cash at the bank, so the other funds that do have the cash resources are floating cash for the general fund to make up that shortfall.
Council, I'd like for him to be able to go ahead and present a little bit more before we ask him.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go over. We'll go over.
Yeah, well, but right now, this is time for that question, Mayor. Because what he's saying right now is that there's money's being allocated for one thing and being used for another. Is that something that's normally performed?
No.
No.
That is, you have funds such as the street maintenance fund.
I understand it.
Okay, the debt service fund.
Is it legal to do that?
It's a no-no, but I'm not sure if it's illegal. You'd have to consult with their.
Yeah, I would like for you to go ahead and do the presentation, because there are, as we go a little bit further, you're going to have your statements about each individual item.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next paragraph is an emphasis of matter paragraph. We did have a change in accounting principle. There's really nothing you could do about it. The GASB did implement GASB statement number 75, which is just reporting your other post-employment benefits, and that's over your retiree health insurance. So that has been actuarially determined. It is an estimate, but we have evaluated the actuary, and the amount seems reasonable and consistent with the prior years. So. The next few paragraphs require supplementary information that we were required to report on as well. And then the rest of the opinion really just goes about the other information that we had to perform that's contained in these financial statements, such as the single audit we performed on the USDA construction contract over the sewer plant and water, and then also that we performed our audit in accordance with government auditing standards. The next few pages, pages 5 through 11, our management discussion and analysis. It's really the cliff notes of the financial statements. It gives users a more narrative term on how the city performed during the year. I was going to cover those in detail today. I was going to mainly focus on the general fund and the proprietary funds financial statements. So that begins on page 18, I'm sorry, page 18. So focusing on the far left column, the general fund, which is your main operating fund for the city. Our total assets was $460,000 for the year. Our total liabilities was $711,000. A lot of that is right there in the middle, right above the 711 figure, is the due to other funds to the tune of $523,000. Those are the funds that the general fund didn't have and was borrowing to cover its operations at September 30th, 2018, related to the pooled cash. And there's a footnote in the back that I'm going to cover as well that shows how this pooled cash is getting allocated across the different funds. That said, your other funds did, although lending money to the general fund, they did operate sufficiently for their respective funds. The debt service fund had a positive fund balance of $241,000. The street maintenance positive $1.1 million, and the capital projects fund had $225,000. Most of that's related to unspent bond money. I did breeze over this, but so the general fund's assets was $460,000, and the liabilities was $711,000. So the difference between that is the financial health of the organization, of the general fund, which shows up at the bottom there, a negative $358,000 deficit, fund deficit.
Okay, before you go further.
Sure.
Okay, when you said $1 million, I mean, was from the bond money, what overage did we do?
The 1.1 million is in the street maintenance fund. That's the sales tax that you're collecting that's getting allocated to the sales tax.
But you're saying that we went over and...
No.
That they borrow from that one.
No, the capital projects fund reported a fund balance of $225,000. And that's unspent bond proceeds. So you've taken in bond resources, and you haven't spent all those bond resources yet. So we restrict those funds into capital projects, which is $221,000.
Restricted means that they can only use it for.
Yes, the bondholders have approved this.
Just for that.
Yeah, just for that.
And that's not happening.
So the $523,000 and the due to other funds recorded in the general fund, and you can see in the middle there on the due from other funds, you have in the debt service $227,000, the capital projects fund $229,000, and then in the street maintenance fund there's $1,077,000 borrowed funds related to this pool cash fund, or pool cash in general. Any questions on that page before I go forward? And I'll explain how we got to the 355 on the next page. Or, sorry, 358.
Just for clarification, in the pool cash does not include the capital project fund?
It does.
It does?
It does.
It does. Okay. Thank you.
On page 20 is our income statement for the different funds. I'm going to steer your attention more to the middle of the page, that excess and then parentheses deficiency of revenues over under expenditures. This is how the operations of each fund did during the year, revenues minus expenses. The general fund had a decrease of $954,000. As mentioned, the debt service and the street maintenance performed well. They had positive $130,000 and $362,000. The capital projects fund did have a negative $2 million, but that's because we had fund balance related to a bond sale last year, tax note sale, that hadn't been spent yet. So that's completely normal to spend those monies on the restricted purpose that they were passed to do. So all in all, we did have, so then steering back to the general fund, we had a negative $954,000 in operations. But then we brought some money in from other funds, and that's in the next column, the transfer ins. We had $700,000 in transfer ins from the proprietary funds. So those were budgeted in the budget, and they're allowed because all those funds are unrestricted. So we're allowed to move money as needed. The problem with doing that is that it taxes your, puts strain on your proprietary funds, because those should be independently operated and infrastructure and stuff like that, preparing for those repairs that may need to be made. Regardless, we had budgeted $700,000 transfer in. Therefore, we did have a decrease of $250,000. So that's the $954 from general operations plus the $700,000 from other funds, and that brought our net change in fund balance a decrease of $254,000. And last year we reported a deficit of $104,000, and they were getting $358,000.
In the deficit?
In the deficit, yes. On page 23, there were no more questions on these pages. On page 23 is our statement of revenues and expenses for the proprietary funds, our water, sewer, refuse, and cemetery. Again, in the middle there, our net income, slight change in terminology, kind of the same thing. Revenues minus expenses. Our water fund had an $844,000 profit. Same with our sewer, had a $1.5 million profit. And our refuse had a $190,000 profit. Then you go down a line and there's transfers out that were budgeted to transfer to the general fund and capital projects funds to help fund this facility, the city hall, to the tune of $500,000, $200,000, and $250,000 across those three funds. So a total of $950,000 came out of the proprietary funds to the governmental funds to aid in operations, and they were all budgeted. So So the next line down, our change in net position, we had still had a positive change in net position in the water fund of $344,000, and the sewer fund also 1.3 million. But the refuse did have a minus $59,000 as a result of this transfer out. We did have restatements also, which I will cover in the note disclosure, up to the tune of about a little over $1 million. Most of that's in the sewer fund. There was a application for payment related to the sewer project. It didn't get accrued back to last year, so we had to record that liability as of September 30th. So those expenses belonged last year.
So is that an increase in the?
That's a decrease in your fund balance, because those expenses should have been reported in last year's ending fund balance number.
So that's what I'm saying, so that, do you add that to the 300-something thousand, 358,000 you're saying too, or you?
So if you focus down the sewer line, so the change in net position after the transfers, you had 1.392 million, but then we had a restatement of $1,064,000. So the sewer fund really turned a profit during the year of $300,000. Because that restatement, we had to throw expenses to prior year.
And why wasn't it budgeted in there?
That's part of it should have been budgeted. Well, I'm not sure if it was budgeted or not. It relates to last year. So my assumption it was budgeted for this year, which is why it was staying here.
You did the audit last year, didn't you?
Correct.
So
so we do have a finding related to that also. Because this should have been, so we perform audit procedures and determine what accounts need to be adjusted. However, our job isn't to adjust those accounts. We should be coming in and reconciliation should be performed, and we should be able to get the information we need to do our audit. We shouldn't have to identify these items. And this $1 million was identified during our audit procedures for this year, which is why we had to accrue it back because of the amount it was.
So did you find a lot of those, or just, you know that?
The restatements, no, this is the only restatement we found related to the water and sewer, and it was just one invoice. So there was services performed in September. It had to go through the USDA approval chains of command, and then it finally got approved in October. However, those services related to the contractor were as of September 30th, 2017. So those should have been accrued back to September 30th, 2017.
And what was that amount again?
It's in a footnote here. It's
500-something thousand.
It's on page 52, if you want to flip to it. The adjustment for the construction in progress, the actual invoice that was paid was $864,000. However, there's retainage that's withheld by the city in accordance with the bid contract of $218,000 that also should have been reported. So the sum of those, also with the implementation of GASB 75, since we have a change in accounting policy, it's retroactive, which was only $19,000 in that fund, but that amounts to the $1,064,000.
That was supposed to be in last year.
Yes, the implementation of GASB 75, y'all couldn't do anything about. That had to be recorded, and otherwise we couldn't issue a clean opinion. But the 864 and the 218 should have been identified in management and accrued back to September 30, 2017. We only identified it through our audit procedures this year. Any other questions?
On page 22, I noticed that you didn't go to that page.
Did you want me to?
Is it important?
I mean, yes, all this is important.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I have some underlined in yellow.
Okay, so I'll briefly go through, and if you have any questions on anything I say or anything that pops out to you, let me know. In the water fund, our total assets is $5.1 million. Right above that, capital assets was 4.3 of that. So most of our assets is in our infrastructure, which is completely normal for water. And then the sewer the same way. We have $10 million in total assets, and 9.5 of that is in our sewer capital outlay. infrastructure. Then our refuse, which is all in our AR, was $177,000. And the cemetery fund had $49,000. Most of that is land and other receivables. Total liabilities was, for the water fund was $1.9 million. So the total assets of 5.1 minus the 1.9 brings our total net position or financial health of the water fund of $3.2 million. Of that 3.2, you have 3.1 invested in capital assets. That is your capital assets less your debt related to that capital assets. So that money is literally tied up. Those capital assets are tied up with the debt related to it. So that net position has to, for our standards, have to be broken out in this presentation. So our total unrestricted net position is only $74,000. And that's for future operations to be spent at will, at how the city wishes to spend that money. That's unrestricted.
So what's a normal number when everything's going good?
So when everything's fine, good, you want to look at your, for the enterprise funds, you want to look at your quick ratio, which is your current liabilities minus your current assets minus your current liabilities. So we have $816,000 in current assets and $640,000 in current liabilities. So that's $180,000, $170,000, $75,000 in financial health. That's a good thing. You have more current assets and current liabilities. Then you take that number and you divide it by your total operating expenses of 1.2. So you have roughly $200,000 divided by 1.2. So you have roughly 6 times the health for that fund. So roughly 6 months operating reserves in that fund. Kind of a quirky calculation, but so that's a healthy. GFOA recommends anywhere from 3 to 6 on that. So you're at the top end of that.
In the water fund?
In the water fund, yeah. You go to the sewer, you do that same ratio, you have the 714, and current liability is 851. You have too many liabilities, so you don't even have a month of operating reserve there. Which explains why, if you go down to the bottom, we have $2.1 million in total net position, but 2.2 is tied up in capital assets less related debt. So you have $159,000 on unrestricted net assets for future operations in the sewer fund.
So we got $159,000 in the sewer fund.
Yeah, in the deficit.
And the deficit.
Yes. It's important to note, though, some of that information. We have our OPEB and net pension liability, which are really just paper numbers required to be reported here in the financial statements. There's really no cash outflow related to that, other than the required TMRS contributions that the city makes on behalf of its employees. However, this number is actuarially determined and allocated based on management estimates of how the employees are coded to the different funds. That's how it's weighted, the liability is weighted across all the funds. But so we have about $164,000 in OPEB and net pension liability that are eating up some of this unrestricted number. So if you take that out, you're really sitting a little positive of 3,000. So I know I'm spending a lot of numbers, but again, the water fund is healthy, and that's a charge for service. The customers and citizens of Floresville are funding the water operations as they use it and the collections. But then we're budgeting transfers out of that fund to the other funds to aid in the operations. That's why we have the going concern. And it's been that's been budgeted for the past 4 or 5 years.
That's how long y'all been doing this?
We've been doing the audit since 2011.
And it's an ongoing thing?
Well, 2012 was the year that I think the insolvency plan started with the city, and it was a 5-year insolvency plan. So kind of at the tail end of that. But it's been recurring year after year. But so yeah.
For about 5 years, 4 years?
4 or 5 years, yeah.
to 20 and can you clarify for me, on the transfer ins to 700?
Yes.
Where exactly does that come from?
I can show you the note disclosure, if you'd like. It's on page 39. So hotel motel transfers in 50,000, water fund,
Okay,
sewer transfer in 200, and then
thank you.
refuge transfer in the 250. Yeah,
Is that 50,000 how often, a year or a month or?
that's once a year. This is an annual number. This is total
So
for the
transfer
year.
in 50,000.
Yes, from the hotel motel, and it is budgeted. And there are usually when you transfer in from restricted resources, such as hotel motel, that's restricted occupancy tax dollars that the city collects on the hotel motel taxes. That usually when you transfer out restricted resources, there needs to be expenses that are adequate enough to support that amount of money, because the money coming over is restricted, so the money being spent needs to be spent on that restricted purpose. And we did audit that, and the general fund spent more than $50,000 in occupancy allowable expenditures. It just didn't show up in the occupancy fund, it showed up in the general fund. So this really just kind of canceled it out, and the general fund ate the excess.
Of the 50,000.
Of the 50,000 transfer. So that 50,000, it was in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
So there's only 50,000 coming out of the hotel motel tax?
Yes.
Every year?
The rest is coming out of the water, sewer, and refuse. Page 39, the notes to the finance statements are lengthy. They give more information on the accounts we kind of went over. I was going to go over those in entirety. We did with the audit committee last week, but I was going to highlight a few that I thought were of importance for today. But again, if you want me to cover one, I'm